Okay, start recording. Okay. So let me know if you have anything complaint, confusion. Let me know. As I said, it's been last time I taught online synchronous class was in the pandemic. So yeah. So I'm not sure it's because when I teach in person, I like to see check your face to judge whether it's understandable or not. But now I cannot see your face. That's making me a little bit uh difficult. But let me see. If you don't mind, let me test this one. Sorry, in the first class, I'm trying to. Oh, okay. Good, 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 good. Do this. Yes. Now it's better. Cool. Okay, so let's start our topic two. And the topic two, the the title is the cardiac output. And so, what does it mean by cardiac output? Anyone have heard this word before?
Yes.
So, what does it mean? Why we want to talk about this? So, okay. So, why we talk about our cardiac output? That's because how do we evaluate the heart function? And what's the function of the heart? So, in our body, we have many different organs. We have liver, we have heart, we have stomach, we have kidney. And for example, the liver, the kidney, they have multiple different functions. But for the heart, they're basically almost only one function, one major function, just to pump the blood. It mainly made of the muscles. So in these cases, we just use a simple method to evaluate the heart function. And actually, honest, I mean, for other organs, we also have some other ways to evaluate the function. For example, in the future, we talk about how to evaluate the kidney function. And so, but anyway, so the heart function is evaluated by the cardiac output. In other words, to say this, how do we evaluate the function of the heart? Basically, how much blood can be pumped out of the heart in 1 minute? That's a key word. In 1 minute. And another thing, which is the most important part in the heart? There are four chambers, right? The left ventricle, left atrium, right ventricle, right atrium. Which one is the most important one?
Left ventricle.
Yes, left ventricle. So the heart function, the cardiac output, we actually particularly focus on the left ventricle. So that let's more specifically uh, define this concept. The cardiac output is the amount of blood in liters that can be pumped out of the left ventricle per minute. Okay, that's the definition of the cardiac output. And in general, like people like me, I'm rather healthy but lack of exercise. So probably we can pump out 2 to 6 liters of blood in 1 minute out of my left ventricle. And it's I give here is roughly a little bit less than 2 gallons of milk. And for a very well trained athlete, he or she can pump out more than 33 liters of blood out of the ventricle. What is 33 liter? This big backpack. I mean, a professional athlete can pump this amount of blood out of their heart, and the blood is circulating very fast. So, and then what kind of things can determine the cardiac output? There are two things. One thing is the heart pumping the blood per beat, right? Pump, pump. So in one cases, for the heartbeat, how many beats, how many times the heart can beat in 1 minute? This is what we call the heart rate. I guess all of you know what is heart rate. The faster heart rate, the higher the cardiac output. So there's one factor that determines the cardiac output. And the heart rate is the factor that can easily regulate it. It can fluctuate it, going up and down all the time. That's the heart rate. Another factor is for each beat, for each contraction, how much blood can be pumped outside the blood. This is called stroke volume. Stroke means one stroke. Stroke volume. And stroke volume is, again, let me say this again. Stroke volume is the amount of the blood that can be pumped out of the left ventricle per contraction. And this part is not that easy to be changed every time. So when people are, sometimes you can feel your heart being stronger and stronger, but overall, in most cases, is the heart rate that can largely be regulated. The stroke volume is not that easily to regulate. So let's start with heart rate. And anyone know our normal range of heart rate of human? But here, 60 to 100 beats. 60 to 100, that's considered the normal rate of a human being. Less than 60, we call it bradycardia. And more than 100, we call it tachycardia. Slow heart rate, low heart rate, high heart rate. Neither of those will be a good sign of heart health. And here's some interesting fact. There's another thing happened. This linking all of those mammals. These are all mammals. In general, the smaller the animals, the heartbeat will be faster, and the shorter they will live. So some people made an equation. They found that in most of the mammals, in their whole total life, there are 2.2 billion heartbeats for the entire life. And some people even going forward beyond this. Even between humans, they said if a heart beats faster, you'll live shorter. But this doesn't make sense. The human is something that away from this whole list because we have way better medical care to make sure we can live longer. And but anyway, this is a heart rate. Let's keep moving. And the thing is, anyone you have ever dissected any animal? I assume you never, none of you have killed anyone, right? Have you ever killed any small animals?
No.
But have you ever killed any small animals? Yeah, it's a. Sorry, sorry if I offend any of you, but I have killed more than 1,000 mice in my research. For the good. Okay, so if you ever dissect a live animal, you take out the heart, you put it there. What do you see? It just stay there still, or it's still pumping.
Still pumping.
Still pumping. Pump, pump, pump. Why is it still pumping? Amazing, right? Why a heart outside the body they can still pump? That's the major key feature of the heart. They generate their own signals to pump by itself. And how does it do so? This based on this, we call it a conductive system in the heart. Inside the heart, the whole heart is mainly made of the heart muscles called cardiomyocytes. And some of those heart muscle cells specialize in some special cells. So we call it pacemaker cells. Where is it? Somewhere. But anyway, you can find it. Pacemaker cells. So, but have you heard of pacemaker before? I guess so, right? Pacemaker. Some people have this artificial pacemaker. We'll talk about it later, actually. The pacemaker cells, what's their function is that their function is that they can automatically generate the signal like they used like just like an electrical probe. For some reason, can automatically generate a signal, and this signal is in rhythm, and they give the signal to the heart muscle cells for them to beat. So the heart beating does not rely on the neural signals. That's why there's a disease. Have you heard of a polio virus? Never heard of it? You're so young. Because now there's a very few polio virus. And some people have polio virus. Polio virus damage the nerve system. Some people have the polio disease. We'll actually talk about this later. Some people have polio diseases, infections. They cannot breathe because the muscle, the nerve have been damaged. However, even though they cannot breathe, they can still have a very strong heartbeat because heartbeat does not rely on neural signals. And in the next two topics, we'll talk about both the cardiomyocytes and the pacemaker cells. But for this class, the one thing you will want to remember is this system, the conductive system in the heart. There is a structure of those pacemaker cells. There are mainly two nodes. There's cluster of pacemaker cells. This one is called sinoatrial nodes. This node is here. Do you see my mouse? It's right on top of the right atrium. This is called SA nodes. SA nodes is the fastest one. SA node normally generate a signal of the 60. Where is it? Somewhere. 60 beats per minute. Yeah, 60 to 100 here. It generates 60 to 100 beats per minute. That's SA nodes. And then it's through this connections connect to another called AV nodes. AV nodes is here between the artery and the ventricle. AV nodes now slower. It only generates 40 to 60 beats per minute. And then after AV nodes, this is called a His bundle and some other bundles. And eventually, the last step is the open end. They call it Purkinje fiber. The Purkinje fiber next directly connected to the heart muscle cells. The thing here is that both AV nodes and SA nodes and His bundle, all of those, they are insulated from the heart muscle cells. And in this case, it's the SA nodes and AV nodes. Even though you have, say, I will use this one. Even though you have a heart muscle next to the SA nodes, this SA or here next to the AV nodes, they cannot be directly activated by the SA nodes. Rather, SA nodes will go through. This is fiber going out and then going back through the fiber, eventually activate the muscles right here. So why so? Why not this muscle cell be activated by the SA nodes? Now I'm going to talk about something very important in the heart. So in the last class, we talked about the atrium and the ventricle. Atrium contract first, and then ventricle. In both cases, either atrium contraction and the ventricle contraction. The thing is, when the ventricle wants to contract, each single cardiomyocytes in the ventricle must contract together. Otherwise, it cannot generate this strong power to squeeze the blood out. Have you ever played the game tug of war? You call tug of war, right? Drag a rope. The tug of war.
Yes.
Oh. Yes. So when you play this game, tug of war, what's the key thing about this? Everybody drag at the same time. So in this case, that's the key thing about the heart. Even though every single cardiomyocytes can contract. However, if those muscles cannot contract together, then you do not have it. You do not have efficient heartbeat. So how you can do so? You see this from the signals coming out from the SA nodes. It goes through all a long fiber to different location of the atrium, and then our body is designed so nicely. each single region of the atrium, they have the same distance in terms of the fibers, same distance from this muscle to the SA nodes. In this cases, all the atrium muscles receive the signals almost at the same time, so they can contract almost at the same time. And also another thing is, you remember the atrium contract first, and then the ventricle, atrium ventricle. And why the ventricle contract about 0.1 second after the atrium? That's the time they take the signal to transmit from SA nodes to the AV nodes. So SA nodes send the signal to every single atrium muscles and the atrium contract, and then it send the signal to the AV nodes, and the AV nodes again send the signal further through the final fiber. They call it Purkinje fiber. Purkinje fiber is the final fiber, final fiber to directly connect to the ventricular cardiomyocytes. And this ventricular cardiomyocytes receive the signal from Purkinje fiber. And again, this Purkinje fiber is very well wired so that each region of the ventricles receive the signal at the same time. And then it contract all the sudden at the same time. So that's the beauty of the conductive system. So every single, yes, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
So then what happened when somebody have a heart attack and the cardiac muscle damage and they have a scar? How does it contract?
That's a very good question. Again, let's work on this page now. So what can happen to the heart in terms of the heart rate? Let's save your question for the last. That's the worst scenario. Let's talk about the most the least serious one, actual beat. So in the case of a heart rate, you may have the actual beat, this one. It normally does nothing you to worry about. And then you have this supraventricular tachycardia. What do you mean by supraventricular tachycardia? Supra means above. Ventricular means ventricle. And tachycardia, faster heart rate. And this means the heart rate is fast. However, it is not caused by the something wrong with the ventricle. It's something wrong, maybe say too excited. It's still normal in the normal range. They call it supraventricular tachycardia. It's still not dangerous. Normally no one die from it. And then now become more and more serious. Bradycardia. Bradycardia, that's what happened is the SA nodes doesn't work well. And let's come back here. In this case, you have SA nodes and AV nodes. Both can generate the rhythm. However, SA nodes is dominant in the whole system. Whoever is the fastest one dominate the whole system. And SA nodes is the fastest one, so SA nodes dominate the system. And then what if it has SA node cells? They basically die. Actually, this is a very common clinical disorder. SA nodes, the pacemaker cells in the SA nodes died. And then sometimes AV nodes take over. If AV nodes take over, then the heart rate will reduce to below 60. And then if AV node cells died also, the his bundle and other cell can also take over, but lower and lower. In this case, you need a pacemaker cells now, the artificial pacemaker now. So in this case, bradycardia, that's the malfunction of the pacemaker cells. And then lastly, that's the thing you talk about. In some cases, one doesn't happen. They maybe have different rates. For example, this guy has atherosclerosis, which means the artery of these people is blocked, and the blood cannot get out of the heart efficiently, and then the body does not receive enough oxygen. It gives a signal to the heart, and let the heart keep contract faster and faster and faster. And this we call it ventricular fibrillation. The ventricular fibrillation, if you're going to be a physician, you are going to test the difference based on the ECG. But this is at least not required by the lecture. I'm thinking about whether it's required by the lab, but at least not required by the lecture. So either way, so your ventricular become faster and faster and faster. And just imagine, say, we have 10 people and we are trying to clap together. At this fast speed, it's easy, right? To have the same rhythm. And then let's clap faster. It's still fine, right? Like this. And then when it's faster and faster and faster, the carbon monoxides no longer can match each other. And then what happens if these carbon monoxides cannot contract together, synchronize with each other? Then with this we call it ventricular fibrillation. That's the condition, John, that you talk about. This is when it happened. Ventricular fibrillation. It means the loss, the synchronized contraction of the heart muscle cells. And if they lost it, no blood will be pumped out of the heart anymore. How can we fix it? Will people die out of after the fibrillation? Can they die? They may.
I say yes.
They may.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So basically, the rate of a death or the survival rate is basically largely depends on how far away this guy is away from the hospital. So I think it's at least 1 hour, 2 hour range is good enough for this guy to be safe. Other than that, he would die. And then, of course, you can use a machine called defibrillation. Have you heard this one? Maybe you can watch this in the TV show. The one here, and give a big shock of the electricity. Go through this, and the shock is up to 1,000 voltage of the shock. And anyone know why it works? I guess no one knows, because really no one knows. This will work. No one knows why the high voltage will just help to correct to make it happen again. So just like sometimes our machine, washing machine, computer doesn't work, I just hit it. The TV doesn't work, we hit it, and it suddenly work sometimes. But I don't know. It's just we don't know. Okay, so let's come back now. We just discussed about several of those abnormality of the heart rate, and then actually most of those abnormality heart rate begin with a normal regulation. So here we talk about how the heart rate can be regulated, and again, so heart rate and the stroke volume are the two factors that contribute to the cardiac output. But in the case of regulation, heart rate is largely more regulated than the stroke volume. So how heart rate is regulated, and we will actually talk about this in more details later. At this moment, one thing you want to remember is that, do you still remember sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system? Who knows? Still? So, for example, if say I'm working and I do not want to work today, I call my boss, tell him that I'm sick today, and then instead stay home, getting well, getting better, I go to a shopping mall, and then in the shopping mall, I saw my boss. At this moment, will my sympathetic nervous system be activated, or my parasympathetic to be activated?
Sympathetic.
Sympathetic, fight or flight. Okay, I need to run away. So normally sympathetic makes us more excited, trying to run or fight someone. So in this case, it's sympathetic, increased heart rate. Overall, anything you have sympathetic activation, increased heart rate. How increased heart rate? We'll talk about in details in actually on Wednesday. And in this cases, we just talk about very briefly one feedback loop, of this. Because normally one one way to activate this sympathetic pathway to increase heart rate is because of the low blood glucose. I'm sorry, not low blood, low blood oxygen, low oxygen level in the blood, and and low high blood, low oxygen and high carbon dioxide, and low pH. Because you have low high carbon dioxide, you also have a low pH. So low oxygen, high carbon dioxide, and low pH. All of those can activate the sympathetic nervous system. And where do we sense? Where do we sense the oxygen level? The oxygen level is sensed by this. There is a sinus, carotid sinus. These two blood vessels, this is the aorta, and there's two blood arteries that go all the way to the brain. They call it carotid arteries. And in the carotid arteries, there's a fork. There's a fork here. You have a sinus here. In this sinus, there are chemical receptors can sense the oxygen level and the CO2 level. There's something. This is some typical visual sensation. We can't actually sense our blood oxygen, but if I ask you, do you know your blood oxygen level now? No one can tell. It never goes directly into our brain at all. We can feel pain, we can feel cold, warm, but oxygen level, some senses we can sense, we can never feel. Another thing that we can sense, but we don't really felt by the consciousness is the blood pressure. We not always can sense the blood pressure. In this one here, in this sinus, there's also another blood pressure called baroreceptor. This is something more important. Baroreceptor, you see the word here. Baroreceptor is a mechanical sensor. It has a lot of it like yeah. For example, I'm a baroreceptor. I have two arms holding the blood vessel. How I can be activated? The blood vessel become larger, and I'm stretched. And when I feel stretched, I'm activated. What can cause the blood vessel to be larger? High blood pressure or low blood pressure? If this blood vessel is stretched larger, it means there's high blood pressure in this blood vessel. So in these cases, what does the baroreceptor do is that the baroreceptor send a signal to the parasympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system give a signal to let the blood vessel to let the heart to beat slower. It basically telling you, no, you're now your blood pressure is too high. You're stretching the arteries. You need to slow down. So baroreceptor sending the high blood pressure gives signal to the brain, and brain return a parasympathetic nervous system to tell the heart to beat slower. So this is the a major thing which will very likely to be the test, to how the heart rate is regulated through the baroreceptor. Okay, we almost done this one. Okay, now we go to the stroke volume. So again, what is stroke volume? The blood vessel, the blood volume that can pump out the left ventricle. Here, I'm showing. This is a heart showing by ultrasound, and this ultrasound is going to the up direction, and what you're seeing is a heart upside down. This is the left ventricle. This is the right ventricle. Left atrium, right atrium. Why am I showing this one? Because it's easy to say how much blood is being pushed out of the heart per stroke. But how to measure this? Can I just insert a tube all the way to my heart and collect all the blood coming out of my heart of each heartbeat? It'll kill me. Really. So in practice, this volume is not calculated by really how much blood is pumping out of the heart. Rather, it's taking the images. It's taking the images of the heart and heart is beating like this, boom, 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 right? And then it calculates the volume of the ventricle. What is the smallest one? What is the smallest volume of the ventricle? And then the largest volume of the ventricle. It just subtraction the smallest ventricle from the largest ventricle, and then gather the volume. That's just how much blood coming out of the ventricle. That's how we calculate it. And in these cases, you can either calculate this as absolutely volume, say in milliliters, or you can calculate this as a ratio. As a ratio means the percentage of the blood can be pumped out from the left ventricle. Yes, please. Oh, I forgot to take the attendance. I'll take the attendance by the end of the class. Please do not go. Please don't leave early or let me know. I'll take an attendance at the end of the class.
Sorry,
So-
my computer died.
Oh, cool. Welcome back. Where am I? Oh, yeah. So there are two ways to calculate the stroke volume. One way is to calculate the actual volume. This is actual volume used to calculate the cardiac output. But in reality, the real cardiac output is not that often to be used as clinical dialysis. What's more often used is the fraction called ejection fraction. Ejection fraction is the fraction of the smallest volume. The smallest volume we call it systolic, and the systolic volume here, and the systolic volume, and the largest volume call it and the diastolic volume. So the percentage of the not really a percentage, the 1 minus the percentage of and the systolic volume divided by the and the systolic volume. In other words, what's the percentage of the blood can be pumped out of the heart? In a healthy person, it needs to be more than half. So in a healthy heart, need to pump at least half of the blood out of the left ventricle per beat. That's the definition. That's the standard of a healthy heart. So, and then what can affect it? How can this stroke volume be affected? There are three things mainly affected the stroke volume. The first thing called the preload. What is preload? And say here, what do you mean load? Load means the contraction. Just imagine you are trying to make a joke with your friend. You take a bucket of water and want to dump to him in the hot summer. I did this a lot when I was a kid. So you want to dump it to his, the whole bucket of water is a load. And preload means how much water you can put in your bucket. Not really a good example, but anyway. So the preload basically means before the ventricle contract, how much blood can be filled into the left ventricle. So we call it preload. And normally, in most cases, preload. After exercise, people can increase the stroke volume, but the least thing that people can improve is the preload. But preload can be affected a lot, can be reduced a lot when he or she has a heart stroke. We'll talk about heart stroke later again today. But let's talk about what happened if people have a heart stroke. The thing is, have you ever have any cut in your skin, fingers? Can it heal? Okay, have you ever seen like you have a cut, and then after a while, that's not even a scar? It happens a lot, right? But the thing is, in the heart, whenever there is a injury there, the heart has a very low capacity of regeneration. A small injury will result in a permanent scar tissue. A scar tissue is the functional heart muscle replaced by collagens, other non-functional cells, and this part has lost two major feature of the muscle. What's the two major feature of the muscle? Another thing. Do you cook? Have you ever
Contraction.
treated the? Huh?
So the heart doesn't have any type of like restorative properties for itself.
I have, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. The
Okay.
property of the heart muscles, or the property of any muscles. That's what I'm talking about. Anyone cook? Deal with the raw meat?
Yes.
Yes? If the raw meat, you can stretch it and come back, right? It's soft, elastic, right? That's one feature of the heart muscle and other part of muscles. You can stretch it. That's why the heart, you can have more blood and contract, more blood contract. However, if this muscle is replaced by the scar tissue, this scar tissue, you cannot stretch it. So in this case, looking this guy in this one. Now this part, the lower part, when you have a scar tissue, this part cannot be stretched. If this part cannot be stretched, then imagine you have a balloon, and then use your tape to tape one area, and this area cannot be expanded anymore. So the capacity of the heart to have any of those volume, any blood flow in are permanently reduced. So again, preload, let me repeat it. Preload is how much blood can be filled into the ventricle before contraction. And the scar tissue, a heart stroke, will permanently reduce the volume by reducing the elasticity of the heart tissues. That's a preload. And then afterload. Afterload can be affected by any other things also. So afterload is after heart contraction, the blood go out of the left ventricle into the aorta, and into the aorta. The aorta itself is filled with blood. It's not empty. So there's the pressure. So afterload, that's the resistance that the left ventricle are encountering when they're trying to push the blood out of the left ventricle. So what kind of things can reduce the afterload? The afterload is the less the better for the heart stroke volume, for a higher stroke volume. And what kind of things can affect the afterload? One thing is happen inside the heart. That's the thing. We talk about the valves. We mainly focus on in this lecture. We mainly focus on the mitral valve and the aortic valve. So something may happen here is that. So here I'm showing the left ventricle. If the left ventricle, when the left ventricle contract, if this is the ventral valve between left atrium and left ventricle, if the mitral valve cannot close completely, then some of those blood will come here. This one, some of those blood will coming back to the left atrium. This is called a regurgitation or mitral regurgitation. So this will dramatically reduce the capability of the heart of pushing blood into the aorta because it reduces the pressure inside the left ventricle. And another thing is, what if this ventricle, this valve, the aortic valve, cannot open completely? This call it the aortic stenosis. Aortic stenosis means it cannot open completely, and then it dramatically, substantially increase the pressure when the left ventricle wants to push the blood into the aorta. So in both cases, this happens. They call it murmurous heart. The guy has, some people has the disorder of the valves, and this need to be treated. People need to receive surgery to replace the valves there. Yeah. So and then another thing, the left ventricle want to push the blood into the aorta, and what if now this guy has an extremely high systemic blood pressure, and then it make it even harder for the blood to be pushed into the aorta. So hypertension. Hypertension is another factor, like increase the afterload, make it harder, make it harder. Sorry. Make it harder for the left ventricle to push blood all the way into the aorta. And lastly, another thing, atherosclerosis. This thing we'll talk about again and again, atherosclerosis. We have, this is another line we'll talk about many times in the future. And now we only talk about what happened. What happened? What's the effect of atherosclerosis? Basically, atherosclerosis is the narrow down of the arteries. And the artery, when the artery narrows down, it makes it harder for the blood to push through. So it's another way to increase the afterload. In some cases, atherosclerosis not only make it harder, sometimes it make it even impossible. That's where that's when the heart attack happens. The heart attack happens when atherosclerosis completely blocks some of the arteries and the blood cannot go through, and the people will feel a strong pain because of the lack of the oxygen there. So there, here the whole page is, if we can remember the four things that contribute to the increase the afterload, that'd be great. And then lastly, the contractility. Really, this is the load. We can have a preload and afterload, and this is a real load here. The how the heart can contract. Contractility means how strong the heart can contract, and this one can be weaker or can be stronger. How it can be weaker, or how can be stronger? Which one to say? Yeah. So, exercise for sure can make a contractility stronger. So, and as people have shown that for the athletes, for example, after years of training of athletes, even after they stop this professional training, the stronger heart remain at least for years, if not for a lifetime. And then what can contribute to the reduce the contractility? That'll be another big issue. There many things. Sometimes because of gradually die of the cardiomyocytes, and sometimes, but in many times, that's related to the calcium signals inside the heart. And for some reasons, we do not know why the calcium pathways are infected. I mean, have you heard of calcium pathways before? What does calcium do? Calcium is a very important internal message of the cells. So many cells, if they want to be activated, there are many different ways outside the cells to trigger the cell, to activate the cells. But internal cells, inside the cells, the about half of the cases are delivered by the calcium ion. So in these cases, let me see, do I have this? Give me 1 second. Oh, no more. Why? So there's I do not have it. Oh, it's in the next. I'm sorry, in the next topic. We can briefly discuss this. That's one thing about the calcium here in between the heart, between the heart muscle and the skeletal muscle. That's one thing, I guess, if I didn't mention, you never think about it before. So our heart, okay, we have to mention, our heart can, for example, me, at least can pump 1 gallon or 2 gallons of milk every minute. But think about it. You took 2 gallons of milk with each of your hand and try to lift it to a desk. You just do it 1 minute. Do once per minute. How long you can do this before you feel tired? An hour? 2 hours, we get tired, right? Eventually we get tired. You can do anything, even simple like this. You show your finger. You do this. How many times before you feel tired? You can try after this. All our skeletal muscles eventually feel tired. They call it muscle fatigue. You must have heard of muscle fatigue, right? But our heart being doing this for lifelong. Why you never feel tired? Why our heart muscle never feel tired? There's many reasons, many explanations. But one key thing about here is this. The heart muscle contraction and the skeletal muscle contraction both need a calcium to be released to trigger the contraction. But the calcium released from this, we talk about later, to the internal called SR. Internal, I mean, is similar as the ER, internal pool of calcium. And the key thing is about it's open the RYR protein, trigger the RYR protein like you have a bag, you have a bottle, and you take off the bottle cap. And RYR is a bottle cap. The thing is, in the skeletal muscle, the RYR cap is removed physically by another protein. And in the case of the heart muscle, this RYR cap is opened by chemical by the calcium influx to go in here. So in that cases, that's only a hypothesis. If you try to remove in the physical way, then gradually this RYR will be very easily to be damaged. And when you do not have this RYR proteins, this muscle can no longer contract. However, in the case of the heart muscle, it's triggered by the calcium influx. This RYR is very difficult to be damaged, so it lasts much longer. And yeah, do we have time? Yeah, I think we have. There's a Y cell. There's there's another thing in the Chinese history. It's a very famous battle. Do you know that the Taiwan government used to be in China, and two parties to fight each other, and the Communist Party win. They control China now, and the other party they lose the battle. They only have Taiwan. Ever heard it before? Okay. Anyway, one of the key battle happened that one of those Taiwan general occupy a small hill, and they hold a hill, and the Chinese armies, communist armies surrounded the hill, and then they want the other people to come, the other armies come to basically eliminate the armies. But the thing is, they hold the hill, use a machine gun. You know what's a machine gun? It's very, very efficient. They prepare enough guns, they prepare enough ammos, but what they do not prepare enough is water to cool down the guns. So how they lose the battle is that the gun is overheated, and then they no longer working. So why I'm talking about this, and then there's a rain 1 hour after they lose the battle. So there's an interesting story. But the thing to talk about this is similar as a gun. So in a skeletal muscle, the old machine gun, this RAR to control the calcium influx is very easy to be damaged. However, in the case of a heart muscle, they may have a automatically cooling machine gun. So this heart muscle keep working. But anyway, so that's why the heart muscle never get fatigued. But still, it's only hypothesis, and there's something. Where's DoD, right? Department of the Defense. There's some research that DoD really want to do. How to find a way to reduce the muscle fatigue. But anyway, but another thing about the muscle, skeletal muscle, and the heart muscle is that all those skeletal muscle is very easy to get fatigued. But another good thing about skeletal muscle is that they have super high rate of regeneration. Have you ever heard of muscle before? Like a stretch and feel pain? It lasts for several days. and going back, right? But the thing about the heart muscle is that the heart muscle has a very, very low turnover. Only about 1% of heart muscle cells is renewed every year. In most cases, when one heart muscle die, it die forever. There's no renew. And then when the body loses enough heart muscle, what happens is that the heart can no longer contract strong enough, and then this we call it the heart failure. In most cases, the heart failure is that the heart do not have enough contractility, and then in this case is how to say what's the standard of heart failure. So heart failure is independent of the cardiac output. So in some cases, a reduced stroke volume can be compensated by high heart rate. But however, if the heart rate, if the stroke volume, if it calculated by the ejection fraction, if the ejection fraction is lower than 40%, we consider this a heart failure. This can no longer be compensated by the heart rate anymore. It's too low. Again, this is less than 40% of the ejection fraction. Where is it? Where is it? Somewhere here. And then another thing maybe you want to remember is what's the clinical diagnosis of the heart failure? I mean, what's the clinical symptoms of the heart failure? What's the most obvious symptoms when people has a heart that can no longer beat strong enough? This one. This is called congestive lower limbs. When you push it, the skin does not return back immediately. That's because this is full of water. Congested. It's full of fluid. And why so? Because there's not enough blood. So what happens is that the fluid keep getting off the blood, get into the tissue. And then as long as the blood flow is fast enough, many of the fluid is going back to the blood, carry back to the heart. However, when people do not have a strong heart, a lot of fluid remain in the tissue, especially more obvious, more severe in the lower limb because lower limb has a because of gravity. So there's major two things you want to remember in this slice. The diagnosis of clinical diagnosis of the heart failure, ejection fraction less than 40%, and obvious symptoms, congested, the accumulation of the fluid in the lower legs. And that's all for today, I think. Yes. So we have, yeah, I rarely finished earlier. So we have 5 minutes. Let's briefly talk about this. That will be in the lecture exams. There will be 7 questions per topic. Today we have go through 2 topics, and then this is the summary. And although I talk a lot, in some of those things I talked will not be in the test. Some of them will be. And how you can prepare for the test, please focus on the summary. I will make questions only out of those things in the summary. So in general, what's the best way that I can think of to prepare for the test? Go through the summary. If you understand very clearly each of those bullets in the summary, you're good. And if you go through read this and still got confused, go back to my slides so have a better idea what I'm talking about here. So basically, yeah, again, if you're all clear about summary, you don't really have to go through the slides. You read the slides only if you're confused here. Go back to my slides. So that's how you prepare for the lecture exams. And that's all for today. Any question? No question? Good. Okay, bye. So see you.
I have a question.
Yes, please. See.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if for every lecture that we will have, are we always going to review 2 labs, or was it just for today?
The lecture and the lab are actually very independent to each other. You can largely consider the lab an independent another course over there. The two things can help each other, but the lab contents are disassociated with the lecture contents. They're not related. Yeah, but for every day, we have two topics of a lecture. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Hey,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Attendance.
To attendance, Professor.
Yes, yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's what I was gonna ask too. Did you take attendance?
I do. Let me give me a second. Give me a second. You know what? I can download attendance list. So, yeah, good. I got it. Don't worry. It's better. It's better. This in this case is better than Zoom. Yeah, I did. I have the
Thank
attendance list.
you.
Hmm?
Good night, everyone.
Good night.